Let's work with objects and smart guides. So objects in InDesign are text or graphic elements or pictures that are placed inside of this InDesign document. So they can consist of images, they can consist of blocks of color, or down to basic simple lines. Okay, so let's look at how we can resize these objects and copy these objects. Very similar to Photoshop and Illustrator, more closely related to Illustrator. So when I have an object frame, and remember in InDesign, everything has a container. That's one thing to always keep in your mind. Everything is in a container or a frame. So this is my object frame. So there are three basic combinations that we can use when dragging our frame handles. So the corner boxes here looks kind of like a bounding box. Those are our handles. So if we wanted to resize this in proportion, just like we always have done with other software tools, we use the Shift key. So Shift will constrain the proportions of my container, of my object. Notice that the contents do not change. So the shape doesn't, it stays within the proper proportions. In this case, it's a square, but the contents of this frame are not scaled proportionally when I use this Shift key. The next option is to use the Alt key and drag. And what the Alt key will do is drags from the center point, just like we would use in Illustrator. So you can see that it's dragging in from the center point, dragging out from the center point. Again, if I would hold Shift, I'm able to constrain those proportions. Okay. My contents, though, did not change. Right? So if I just click and drag, also, I just can resize this thing freehand as well. The last option is something you probably want to remember. This one will resize the object, which is my frame, but it will also control the content. So I'm going to hold the control key. Okay, so the control key, and I'll just bring it down here. The control key will resize. Let's go and reset this. I'm going to revert this back to the way it was when I first opened it. So with the selection tool, I'm going to click my container, and this time I'm going to hold down the control key when I drag. There you go. See how it changed the content as well? It's kind of a very complex way. You have to make sure you're hitting those keys at the right time. So Shift key constrains the proportion. So Shift key changes the object but not the content. Option key, when I drags out from the middle, doesn't do anything to the content. I'm doing a Control Z to get back to my starting point. And then either Control or Command dragging a handle will change the content as well as the container. There you can see that happening. To copy and paste, let's zoom out just a little bit here so we can see more of our page. I'm going to slide this over to the side. We can do our simple Control C and Control V, right, to copy and paste it. I'm going to delete that one. I also, of course, can go under my Edit, cut, copy, paste. I can paste into, I can paste in place. Paste in place would place exactly where I copied it from. The quicker way to make a copy is to hold down your Alt key. And you watch your cursor, you're going to get a double arrow. Now, we use the Alt key to drag, so you don't want to hit on a corner and hold the Alt key. You want to go inside of the object and hold the Alt key. And I can hold Shift now. Again, it constrains the proportion, but this time, because I'm moving it, it's constraining the proportion in my movement. So I know that these are perfectly lined up. Okay, so that's copying objects. I also can hide things if I temporarily want to make it invisible, or I can choose to print something, but I don't want those pieces to print at the moment. So I actually, a couple ways to do it. Now I'm going to go into my layers. Layers is something we've used in other software tools quite a bit. In InDesign works the same way, and you can see that each one of my items are on their own sub-layer. Under our object menu, we do have a hide. We also can show all here, and in this case, there are some other objects that we're hiding. The eyeball turns things off or turns things on. Okay, so we can choose to go under Object and we can hide. Now let's select these pieces, those three again. Object, let's hide them, and they are gone. I can either go to Object and show all to show everything, or I can manipulate what's visible and not by the eyeball tool. I also can lock. So back up one more time here. When I hide things, they will not print. So at this point, that the two yellow boxes are not going to print. All right, now how about locking? What if I don't want to accidentally move something? I can lock them. So say I want to lock my square here. Again, we're going to look under Object and Lock. Control L, that's an easy one. I can unlock everything on the spread because I can lock this. Now I can't select it. It's not selectable, it's not movable, but it will print. And now I can select this one and I can lock it. Okay. The other thing we can do is over here on layers again, I can just click that simple little lock icon. Do you notice that on my actual shape, I get two little icons telling me, hey, this is locked. So if you're wondering why I can't get it, it's locked. Unlock it, unlock it. So there are many ways that you can play around with that locking feature. I also can group objects. So if I want them to sort of be protected in the way that their relationship is. I like that these two pieces are this distance apart. They always are going to look this way. Then I probably want to lock them. So again, I'm sorry, I want to group them. So I can go under Object and Group, Control G. Now they move together. Okay. Now in InDesign, I can go ahead and double click and sort of click inside of that group with my selection tool, and I can select and move. If I deselect and then go back and select, you can see this dotted border indicating they are grouped. So you can go in sort of a level and do some editing as well. You also can utilize your direct selection tool, and this will allow you to do some, if I can get just this one, allow me just to change some specific pieces within a group too. So double click with the selection tool or the direct selection tool will allow you to manipulate items within a group. And of course, if I want to ungroup those pieces, I would go to Object and Ungroup, click outside to deselect, and now they are independent of each other. One last piece, smart guides. Some people really like to deal with smart guides. I think they can be helpful sometimes. Other times they seem to get in the way. So it's good idea to know how I can turn those on and off. So under View, Grids and Guides, we have some different pieces here to show guides. And here it is, Smart Guides. It's on right now. So it gives me a great visual when I'm trying to position options in a specific location or precisely in relationship to something else on the page in relation to other objects. However, sometimes I don't want to see those smart guides, so I can turn them on, turn them off. Control U is that quick key there. Okay, and those smart guides are things like that right there. I can see that I'm aligned. If I drag down, I'm going to see that different features are visible here. So it's a great tool if you like to use it. So there you can see I was lining things up. All right, so copying, resizing, hiding, locking, grouping, and smart guides. Just some general issues dealing with objects in InDesign.